The 2018 general elections. The issues that matter. The people that matter. This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan.
Good evening. I'm Vijay Narayan and we start off on yet another journey. Straight Talk right here in our studio at VTFM, home of Communications Fiji Limited, with our 5 radio stations: Legend FM, FM 96, VTFM, Naftarang and Radio Sargam, and of course our website fijivillage.com. Well, we've started off with our coverage of 2018 general elections, and as talk has started from all parties, we had the nominations confirmed, of course the writ of elections issued, and then time given to parties to submit their nominations. That process came to an end yesterday, and then we had the confirmation late last night from the Fijian Elections Office, the Supervisor of Elections, coming out and confirming that we have the set of nominated candidates ready to go. Today was appeal and objection day, and we've had 1 appeal and 7 objections. The Fijian Elections Office will sit tomorrow to deliberate on that, and then we will hear from them. But of course, for you, the listeners, you want to hear from the political party leaders. What do they have in store for you? What do they have in store for Fiji? Because everything that happens in elections, you will be directly affected by it when a government comes into power. So that's the process that we are now undertaking. And for your benefit, for all our listeners, the people of Fiji, through VTFM on this dial, we will be bringing you political party leaders, some candidates on what they have to offer. And that will start from tonight with the Fiji Labour Party candidates leader, Mr. Aman Ravindra Singh. We've also got confirmation tonight that on Thursday night at 7 p.m. we will have a former Prime Minister and Sodelpa leader, Sitiveni Rambuka, coming for Straight Talk. So that's the program for this week. We have a Labour Party tonight and Sodelpa on Thursday night. You can also call us with your questions. You can call us on 3314766. We'll get your questions. Just your questions, please. No statements. And then those questions, I will field them to Mr. Singh as well. We'd like to welcome Mr. Singh on behalf of all our listeners who are tuned into VTFM and all our viewers on Facebook Live, on our website page, Fiji Village. Mr. Aman Ravindra Singh, thank you very much for accepting the invitation to come to Straight Talk.
Thank you very much, and it is wonderful to be here on Straight Talk for some straight talking tonight.
Thank you. So let's try to get into it straight away. So let's talk about Fiji Labour Party and the leadership of Fiji Labour Party. The Fiji Labour Party currently has a leader who is not eligible to contest the elections, and Mahendra Chaudhry still holds the leadership as we speak. Why do you have this setup?
Well, it's quite obvious, Vijay, that you were going to ask about Fiji Labour Party and its leadership. To put matters to rest, it's quite simple. Mr. Chaudhry had been suspended from contesting in the last election and also this elections. Therefore, Labour Party met and decided that there had to be a new leader which could lead the party into the general elections. The decision was made at the management board that was endorsed by the National Council, which has delegates from all over Fiji, and it was an unanimous decision. So I had the backing of the entire delegate rank and file from the Labour Party throughout Fiji. And this is basically Labour Party being practical. And this is how we are approaching the suspension of Mr. Chaudhry.
No, Mr. Chaudhry's suspension, of course, it is clearly stated in the laws of Fiji that for 8 years he was not eligible to contest the elections. Of course, in 2014 he did not contest, and this is the second one. Now, knowing that that will not take place, why not just go into a new leadership, knowing that you need that going forward?
Look, the party is in transition, that's first. And secondly, the Labour Party now has 2 leaders. One is Mr. Chaudhry, who is the leader in charge of administration of the party, and with myself in charge of leading the candidates and looking at the matters which has to deal with elections. We're not the only party in Fiji with two leaders. I think the party down the road, largest opposition in parliament at the moment, has 2 or 3 leaders.
No, I'm just asking you the question because, as you said, that you are into transition, and common sense would suggest that when people vote, they're also considering that the leader of the party will be the Prime Minister. But you have a different scenario. How do you feel about that by being holding the position of a candidate's leader?
I'm not a candidate's leader. I think that's the title that you have given me. You need to get your facts right, firstly, and secondly.
Okay, so what are
Mr. Chaudhary is not.
What are you?
Is not eligible to contest.
Yes,
so
we know
if he's
that.
not eligible to contest, how
yes,
exactly do you
Mr.
expect
Singh,
the winner of the election, the person who cannot contest, to become a prime minister?
Then
That's impossible.
That's why I'm asking you about the leadership.
There are no issues. The only issues with the leadership is with Communications Fiji Limited and FPC, and I think Fiji Sun. No one else makes an issue.
My question is that when people go to vote,
Mr. Chaudhary is not a candidate. Period.
Okay. When people go
there
to
is
vote,
no
again,
confusion.
I will ask you.
There is no confusion.
When people go to vote, they normally look at the setup of the party, and there's a leadership of the party that will set the direction for the party. And you do not hold that position at this stage. It's because the questions have come up about that. That's why I'm asking you the question. Now, don't say that CFL does not recognize you in a certain position or the other. We'll talk about that as well. We recognize you. That's why you're sitting here today, Mr. Singh. So let's not go there. Let's talk about your position. I think you're saying you're a parliamentary leader. Now, you can only be a parliamentary leader if your party is in parliament.
Well, that's according to you.
No, if your party is in parliament, the normal process is when you have a parliament, then you vote for a parliamentary leader. So how can you be a parliamentary leader?
I think that's according to you. If you look at the Fiji Labour Party constitution...
You tell the people,
yes,
how can you be a parliamentary leader?
I'm explaining. Yeah. If you look at the Fiji Labour Party constitution, which I don't think you have before you, there is only one leadership position, and that is the parliamentary leader. Unfortunately, since 2006, after the military coup, there was no standing parliament in Fiji. At that last occasion, Mr. Chaudhary was the parliamentary leader. Since he was suspended, they could not contest the 2014 elections and the 2018 elections. There has been a change in leadership within the party. He now is the leader of the party, looking after administration, whereas I have been given the duty and the role to head the party into elections. Now, your question is, there is no, if you are not in parliament, how can you be a parliamentary leader? That is the title given to the leader heading the party into elections in the FLP constitution.
Even before you go into parliament?
Well, that doesn't matter. That's the title in the constitution. We haven't changed the constitution.
Do you think you should change it?
Well, I don't see any issues with that. We are heading towards parliament. As far as I'm concerned, I have a job to do, and that is to lead FLP back into parliament.
So what happens after? Just say you have got the seats in parliament, you go into parliament, you still will have a party leader outside parliament, and you will be the parliamentary leader in parliament?
I think that it's nothing abnormal. A lot of parties have had that. They've had a parliamentary leader, and they have had a leader of the party. And for the Labour Party, that's nothing abnormal.
They didn't have that set up before?
No, of course not. As I've said, there has been changes due to the suspension.
2014, he was still leader. There was no parliamentary leader.
Things have changed, and that was in March this year.
Why the change?
Because the sitting leader could not contest, and therefore there was a need for a leader to lead the candidates into elections, and that was made in the decision was made in March, taken through the management board, taken to the National Council, passed unanimously, and the appointment was made.
So, Mr. Singh, just to clear the issue for our listeners and viewers, you are the parliamentary leader taking the candidates to elections, and then you will remain the parliamentary leader if you go into parliament, while you'll have a party leader who's outside looking after administration?
Again, I wouldn't agree to your comment simply based on the fact we will relook at the position of the leader of the party and the parliamentary leader once we return to Parliament. As I said, we are working within the frameworks of our Constitution. If there are to be amendments, we need to take that to the Labour Party Congress, which is the highest decision-making body and also the body which can make amendments to the Constitution. However, simply put, today, yesterday and tomorrow, things within the Labour Party are fine. We are working very well. We have a parliamentary leader and we have a leader in charge of administration.
But I will ask you a question again, and this is for the listeners, that you said things could change. Now, people would want certainty. When they go to vote, they want certainty how the party setup will be after the elections is over. Can you give us certainty? What could happen?
Well, nothing could happen.
What's the plan?
It would remain as it is today. It will remain the same. It will remain as it is today.
So you will be parliamentary leader, and you will have a party leader outside Parliament.
Yes, but this is politics, right? And right now, myself, together with all the candidates and the leadership and the rank and file of the Labour Party, are totally focused on making a comeback into Parliament. That is our objective at this point. We do not have any issues over leadership. Everything has been done through the proper channels, and we are happy, and the party is as best united as it ever has been.
Yes, thank you very much. That question had to be asked because you would know that if you have two leaders, people would be wondering, and that is the reason for that question. Now, you're on Straight Talk on VTFM, and you can call us on 3314-766 with your questions, and we will get them over to Mr. Singh, and he will answer them. Now, Mr. Singh, Fiji Labour Party won the elections in 1987 and 1999, but the FLP governments were removed after not serving their terms. Following that, you have not been able to get the numbers to form government in 2001 and 2006. In 2006, of course, there was a multi-party cabinet set up where some of the FLP members did join with the Garase-led government. And in 2014, you had the worst result where you did not make the threshold. Your leader was also part of the Bainimarama-led interim government in 2007. Now, has an assessment been made on why you could not win any seats in 2014 after that?
There was a period of uncertainty. If you recollect, on 5th December 2006, there was a military coup headed by Bainimarama. And for the next 8 years, there were no political activities within the country, no political meetings were allowed, no political activities could take place. And at that particular time, Labour Party was not able to organize, was not able to reconnect or connect with the grassroots supporters. A great climate of fear had been put over the entire population. And by the time the 2014 elections came, the whole landscape had changed. There we had the Qayyum Bainimarama-led government, who was still interim. They had formed their own party, and they were simply heading into government again. They changed the rules. The electoral system had been changed from alternative voting, multiple constituencies and seats to one particular seat. There were a lot of changes. But what factored in worst for the Labour Party was the 8 years of lack of movement. We were not able to organize or do anything. And come the elections 2014, we had a very poor result. In fact, the most poor result in the party's history. But this is once again politics. You have your good days, your bad days, and the days in between. As far as we are concerned, Labour is on the rise. We are making a comeback, and we look forward to a much more better result come election night.
How many seats are you looking at?
At this particular point, our biggest ambition and objective is to pass the threshold. And if you do your mathematics, if you do pass the threshold, you're looking at possibly 2 to 3 seats.
So you're looking at 2 to 3 seats?
Once again, as I've mentioned, we cannot aim for just one because it's not possible under this system. We are looking at making a comeback into Parliament.
I notice you haven't had campaign meetings. We also contacted you to find out so that the people of Fiji know where your campaign meetings have been taking place and what you've been saying at the campaign meetings. You starting maybe after the candidates' number draw, or you're holding back a bit?
Well, we haven't been holding back. What we find out there is that people are very scared, especially of certain media organizations. They're scared of having their photographs taken or what they are saying. So that is one of the reasons why we were not able to supply any media outlet, not just CFL, but every other media outlet, where we were and what we were seeing or what we were hearing from members of the public. But now that the numbers would be drawn after, I think, Friday, we will then be able to contact, or we will then be able to give at least certain schedules of our meetings with members of the public, and any media organization wanting to attend will be most welcome.
Okay, so when do your campaign meetings start for the people of Fiji?
Our campaign meetings have been going on for the last 3 months, but we will also be in a better position once we have our numbers.
Now, you can call us on 3314-766 for questions, and so that we can also ask Mrs. Singh the questions that you'd like to ask. Now, we look at some of the policies, Mr. Singh. As part of your social policies, you have said that you will reduce the cost of living. Now, it's a very broad statement, but we would like to get more details on behalf of our listeners. How will you do this?
I'll just take a brief look at recent history. In the 1999, the second Labour government, when it went into governance, one of the first things it did was remove VAT on basic food items. At that particular time, VAT was 15%, and once that was removed on basic food items, basic food items had become much, much cheaper. That also meant that our people out there were paying less for food, and they had more money in their pockets. At the same time, Labour had also been able to implement something for the first time in the country, which was a minimum wage. Previously, people had been paid very poor wages, even as little as 50 cents or 60 cents per an hour.
What was your minimum wage at the time?
At that time, there was no minimum wage. So Labour had brought in $1.60 as a minimum wage in 1999. It is a shame to see that even today it's only gone up to $2.68. So how do we make a difference in people's lives? First of all, we need better wages. Secondly, basic food items, when you make it cheaper, people will have more money in their pockets. So if you work in conjunction with better wages and Labour's policy, and what we are advancing is that minimum wage now should be $3.50, and at the same time we will reduce, we will take out VAT again on basic food items. No other government has done that before.
Let's just break it down. Let's just
that.
break it down for listeners to understand. Now, let's go to minimum wage. You're saying $3.50?
That's correct.
$3.50. Okay.
That is what we propose.
Okay, that's what you propose. That is for unskilled workers?
Look, minimum wage, and let's get this clear once and for all. What we are proposing, just like what we had proposed and implemented in 1999, which many persons had said was impossible, we made it possible. We are proposing $3.50 as a minimum wage. Simply put, that is where the wages will start from. Now, any other person or companies who are going to pay more, any other skills which requires more payment, obviously that is the way to go. Then obviously it's open to people to negotiate, the employer to pay more, and the employee to prove themselves by putting forward their certification and their skills on the line. So I hope there's no confusion with what we are saying. When we proposed the minimum wage in 1999, it was put at $1.60 at that particular time. Now, after 19 odd years, we are proposing $3.50.
Okay. Mr. Singh, right now, according to the wages councils that we have, you would be aware of that, the 10 wages councils of the Ministry of Employment, we have, like for the different industries, we have for the printing trade, for the permanent staff, the wages are about $3.39, ranging between $2.82 to $3.39. We have in the wholesale and retail trade sector wages ranging from $2.93 to $3.12. Then we have hotel and catering around $2.87 to $3.31. Then sawmilling and logging, we have wages that go up to about $4.25. And road transport around $3.52. Building and civil, electrical engineering trade, about $5.22. Basically, I'm asking you the question, what happens to these wages councils? How will you put that? So you've got a national minimum wage rate of $3.50, and then you look at other wages councils on what the minimum wages will be there as it's the structure at the moment?
Well, there used to be one wages council that was disbanded by the interim military regime. What we would like to see is that the wages council, which or is present, is fully functional and not acting for interest of some and not in the interest of many. Simply put, as I've said before, and I restate, what we are proposing is a minimum wage of $3.50. Now, the examples you've given me, obviously certain skilled workers are doing much better, $3.90, $3.40, and that's great. But what we are proposing is simple. $3.50 it will be the next minimum wage. And as I've said, everything needs to work in conjunction. And that also means that at this present time we have high inflation rates that needs to be brought down. We have food prices which are expensive. That needs to be brought down.
What happens to these other wages councils where you have skilled workers who are even going beyond $4.50, $5.50? Of course, they would also be listening if they are in that trade sector. What would happen to them?
Well, as far as we are concerned, nothing negative will happen because the wages councils have already set their wage rates.
Would they be reassessed?
Well, if there is a reassessment, only thing is that things will go better.
Will they be reassessed?
If there is a reassessment, then obviously wages will not drop, but it could go higher. If you look at the present situation we have today, while $2.68 is the minimum wage, there are many companies which do not even reach $2.68 and they are paying their workers low. They're marking them their books as working lesser hours, and at that particular time not even paying FNPF. So there are issues right now which the current government through FNPF and Ministry of Labour has not addressed. And it is important that we are able to address and make sure that there is fair payment of fair wages for all. And the minimum wage that we are proposing is $3.50. And back to your question, whereby you've asked if anything would happen, as I've said, these skilled workers have already been assessed. If anything, we will peg it to cost of living. And with cost of living, as we know previously, before the military takeover, it was to adjust people's cost of living, and wages would go up through increments. It would not go low.
So you would make that decision if you have to make a reassessment at a later stage?
Yes, once in government, we would have the opportunity to do that.
Thank you. I think that's what people would want to know. Now, Harry from Samambula is asking Mr. Singh why the party leadership has been given to Mr. Aman Ravindra Singh.
Well, I wish I could answer that. No, I can't. That was a decision made by the management board, which I was not part of the discussions. And secondly, that was a decision made by the National Council, which again I was not part of, because it would have not been correct for me to be part of discussions whereby I was going to get an appointment.
It's Mr. Aman Ravindra Singh. He's on Straight Talk tonight. We'll take a short break and be right back, and we'll be talking about prices of food items.
Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan continues after the break.
Meu matangi se karawa kerea bobo sotiau
This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan.
Good evening again. You're on Straight Talk, and our guest tonight is Fiji Labour Party's Aman Ravindra Singh, the leader of the candidates of the party who is taking them to elections. As he says, he is the parliamentary leader, and he will be in Parliament with his team. And as he has said, clarified earlier, we've had more questions coming out about the leadership of FLP, and we had clarified earlier with Mr. Singh, and he says the administration work is being looked after by Mahendra Chaudhry, still the leader of FLP, while Mr. Aman Ravindra Singh is the leader of the candidates going into the elections on November 14th. Now, talking about prices of items, as you had said that that is something that you'll be looking at. Mr. Singh, can you talk a bit more about what are the specifics?
The specifics is straightforward. VAT was taken out on basic food items in the 99 Labour government. That is exactly what we propose to do this time around. And with VAT taken out from basic food items, that will make a huge difference in the lives of people, especially at this particular time. We have a lot of people living below the poverty line, and even another set of the population living in extreme poverty. Now, even if a person is paying, let's say, for example, sharps, if a person is paying 50 cents less, if VAT is taken out, that means 50 cents more in the person who's the consumer's pocket. Similarly, on other basic food items, that is exactly the objective of the removal of VAT.
Now, VAT you'll remove for which items? What
Basic
is
food items.
termed as basic food items for you? What's your list?
Well, exactly what there is no specific list. If you look back at 1999 and what had been taken out, we had milk, we had sharps, we had tea, oil, noodles, basic food items, tin fish. Now, obviously, certain food items since 1999 have been put on a list whereby Consumer Council has put out a list, and that list obviously protects certain items from being not priced at a particular. There's a bar, and it cannot be priced any higher.
So price control items.
Yes. However, we are looking at VAT. We're not questioning price control. We are looking at VAT and where VAT has been implemented, and where VAT can be taken out to make the food price cheaper.
So scrap VAT for basic food items and the same basic food items as those that were in 1999.
Yes, obviously. However, times have changed, and we would also look forward at scrapping VAT from other items such as baby's formula, baby's milk. This is very unfortunate that parents have to pay almost $20 for some sort of baby milk. If you're looking at SMS Progress, you're looking at $42 per tin, and all this is VAT inclusive. So if we are able to remove VAT from, again, not only basic food items, but items which are for children and babies, that will also
Do you have
make
a list of
difference.
these items? What else is in that list where you will remove VAT?
We, as we have said, we will remove VAT, and as per the 99 Labour government, food was removed of 15 basic food items.
15 basic food items.
And once again, we saw the Garase government reintroduce VAT, and the Kayum Bainimarama government has completed that list, and VAT has been reimposed. Although VAT is slightly lower at this particular point, we're looking at 9%. It's still VAT. Now, the issue we have with VAT is that it does not leave out certain segments of the population. A little child, a little baby will be paying VAT. The elder citizen will be paying VAT, and everyone else in between pays VAT for basic food items. And our objective is to make the lives of everyday people much more easier, and that by removing and making food items cheaper also would mean that more money would be in a person's pocket. That will also mean that those living in poverty and extreme poverty are able to at least purchase more. They will have more buying power. Now, VAT has been removed by this government, but on certain items which do not really involve basic food items, perfume, tire, I don't think everyone buys perfumes or tires every day.
No, there's no VAT is being paid for everything now, Mr. Singh.
Yes, but it has been reduced.
There's no.
I'm talking about reduction
VAT,
from 15% to 9%.
VAT is now 9% for
Yes,
all items.
yes,
So there's no removal of VAT, just to clearly
Reduction.
state that. There's been a reduction across the board.
Yes.
And those items that were covered before, zero rate, they are also
9%.
included VAT.
Yes.
Now, have you done your math? How much will you lose as far as income is concerned? Of course, government needs revenue to run its affairs. How will you do that? Have you done
Yes, of
your
course we have.
calculations?
And it's quite simple. Again, 1999, certain quarters had said that removal of VAT on basic food items was impossible. Yet the Labour government went ahead and implemented that policy, and it worked. That was one of our campaign promises. Now, fast forward 18 years later, of course, the question would be, have we done our homework? Now, look, let's look at the economic state of the country. First of all, the economic state is very appalling. We are in over 8 billion debt, and it's still counting. We've got debt coming in from sources whereby interest rates are high.
Where did you get your 8 billion debt from?
And it's very, very difficult. Well, let me just finish.
No.
Let me finish.
Let's just get clarification on that.
And if you are asking me if I've done my homework, yes, we have.
No,
now,
but we
millions
need to
of
look at the
dollars are
statistics.
missing. Millions of dollars are missing. The Auditor General's report
Mr.
from
Singh,
2007 to 2013
Can we just
states
address
that.
issues
So we
one
need
at a time,
more
Mr.
prudent
Singh?
government.
Mr. Singh, can we
Yes,
address
go ahead.
issues one at a time?
Yes. The government accepts
Where
5
did you
billion
get-
debt. The government
Where- no.
accepts 5 billion debt. What about those debts
No,
which have been guaranteed by government?
I'm asking you.
Yes, look it
the
up.
total debt.
That's what the government accepts.
Total government debt, according to financial reports.
Yes, there is the financial report. What about the guarantees they've
I'm
made?
showing you.
No. Where?
No,
What
I'm
about the
showing you the
guarantees?
total government debt.
That's what you're looking at on the paper.
What
Now
is-
show me
what is the total
debt
government
which
debt,
has
Mr.
been
Singh?
guaranteed by government.
Mr. Singh,
Show
you
me.
said 8 billion.
No.
What
Show
is
me the debt which has been guaranteed by government. Show me that page.
total
It's not there.
government debt? How much is it?
Show me.
I'm asking you
I
first.
am adding
Mr. Singh,
the government
there
debt
is
together.
$5.169 billion.
That is what has been
debt,
supplied to you
according to this.
by the least transparent and accountable government in Fiji's history,
These
the
are
most
all the
corrupt government in
statistics
Fiji's
here,
history.
and we've
Those are
also got
statistics that have been
independent
provided
statistics.
by Ministry of Economy.
No,
What about the
we've also
government?
got it from Reserve Bank of Fiji,
That's
the
again
Fiji
controlled by
Bureau of
government.
Statistics.
Yes. What about
So
the
you do
census
not
figures?
agree
Where's-
with all the independent statistics?
This is a
as well.
government which operates
What
without
about the
transparency
ADB
and
statistics?
accountability.
What about the ADB also
I've
approving the
asked you,
statistics?
Mr. Narayan, a simple question. Could you just
I've
show me the
asked you-
page
you were
which
talking
shows
about contingent
gov-
liabilities.
No, I'm talking about the debts which have been approved and guaranteed by
That's
government.
what they call contingent
Yes, where is
liabilities. If it is not
Show
paid
me.
off, it's there.
Yeah, add that.
Now,
Add that.
I'm telling
comes to
you
8
about
billion.
this is the total government debt.
That is not the total government debt. Any
government-
debt the government guarantees
debt
is
that the
also the
government
government's
has taken
responsibility.
Is $5.169 billion. It's always calculated like that.
Well, edit.
It's always calculated like that, even in the 1999
It doesn't
government,
matter. What I'm
2000
saying is the government's
it was
total debt
calculated
is
like
over
that.
8 billion.
That's your assessment.
Yes, that
what
is
we're
because
saying is
I'm
by
adding-
documentary
I'm-
assessment,
Yeah, but
Mr. Singh.
where is the
Now,
guaranteed
I'm asking you the
loans?
question. The debt is there. That's a fact. Okay?
Plus.
I'm asking you
Plus
the
the
question,
guarantees.
Mr. Singh, I'm asking you the question, with that type of debt, and you have an issue where you are looking at taxes and you're saying you will be reducing. I'm just asking you the question for the benefit of listeners to tell them where will you get the money from to look at government services paying the debts.
It's again very simple. As I've mentioned, while you have shown me that particular document, I have said and I maintain that government's debt today is over 8 billion. That is the straight debts which are there on the books and also the debts that the government has guaranteed. Now, back to the question, where do we bring the funds from? Well, it's quite simple. There is massive amounts of corruption going on in this current government. Auditor General's report has shown over 500 million missing, and there has been no accountability for that. As far as the Labour government is Labour Party is concerned, under Labour government, we will obviously make sure that there is no mismanagement of funds. And when we come to mismanagement of funds and funds which are being spent and loans which are being taken for money which we do not have, that's where the problem lies. Now, the Labour government had also balanced the books in 1999. Now, since then, no other government has balanced the books. Why? Because we are too reliant on debts. And the problem with this government is it spends over 500 million on roads every year for the last 7-8 years, puts 250 million under for health. The health services is very appalling. It's very poor. We do not even have basic medicines in the hospitals. Now, what we need is proper management.
We will talk
And
about health.
even if
we
we
will
take
talk about
out-
health, Mr. Singh.
Okay, even if I
we
could
are
finish,
talking
even
about
if we
we're
take out
talking about
VAT.
taxes and
Yes.
duties. If not, we'll be here all
Sure,
night
sure.
talking about all these things.
Just to answer
Let's
your
talk
question.
about taxes
Yes.
and duties first.
If we take out basic VAT on basic food items, as I said, the mismanagement currently taking place, we will stop, and that money will be used to cover up for the VAT, which will not
So
be
you will not
counted.
increase any other taxes and duties?
Well, we are
to
only
make up for
talking. We are only talking about tax.
I'm talking
VAT.
about taxes and duties.
Yes, we are only
we
talking
have
about VAT
moved
at
to
this
taxes
point.
and duties.
Yes.
Will you increase any other taxes and duties to make up for what you need to do as a government?
Well, as I've stated very clearly, and I'll say it again, we do not need to increase taxes because of the financial mismanagement currently taking place. Once we tighten, we have better fiscal control, we will not be affected. We will not be affected with the reduction of VAT or the taking out of
So
VAT.
you will not increase taxes and duties?
No, I'm not saying that. We were talking about VAT on basic food items. Now you've asked me how will we cover up for the loss when we when
Through
we take
taxes
out.
and duties, yes.
So what I've said
as
is
government revenue.
yes, and what I've said, and the Labour answer is simple, and that is we will have more stronger fiscal control, and make sure that we cut out mismanagement of funds, and that money will be able to cover up for the VAT which will not be recovered because it will be taken out from basic food items.
So what about other taxes and duties? You will not increase them?
No, I cannot give you
You
a
cannot
yes.
confirm at
No,
this
I
stage.
cannot, because it will be speculation. Firstly, and secondly, if we look at all the duties currently imposed on items, it is high, or basically there is protection given to certain areas which should not be there. We will be more inclined to give protection to local goods, local manufacturing, also local products. while we see huge billboards all over the country which says buy Fiji made, exactly what is Fiji made and exactly what are we buying? There's not much to show apart from real life. Even the milk industry is down the gutters, and we have had to import milk from all over the world to make sure that we are able to keep up with the milk's demand in this country. So back to the question, as far as we are concerned, at this particular point we're talking about reduction in VAT, but to say that will we reduce or to take out any other duties being imposed, we will obviously review and consult with
assess, and people will find out later.
And consult all the necessary
all
stakeholders.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Now, how will you deal with imported goods like fuel and other imported products, knowing that there's a lot of imports? You touched on it a bit about how much we produce, but how will you deal with that? Because those prices are not dictated by us. So how?
Okay,
how is the Fiji Labour Party planning to handle that?
If I could just answer the first part of the question, which is how will we look at prices for fuel? If I could just answer that part first. Now, what we have seen over the last 10, 12 years is that fuel prices have gone up and gone down, every so many months.
Every quarter.
Every quarter, fuel prices go up and go down. Yes, it is acceptable that fuel prices are not controlled by Fiji, but one of the policies that we would like to implement is to make sure that fuel prices are cheaper than the current highs that we are experiencing, because again there's a flow-on factor. If the prices are cheaper, bus prices and taxi fares can be cheaper. When the fuel prices go up, the population suffer, because at the same time buses complain that they need to increase. Taxi associations demand that there has to be higher taxi prices because they are paying a lot for fuel. So from our point of view, we are people-centered. Our policies need to make an impact in the lives of everyday people who catch buses, people who go by taxis. Now, the decisions being made in this country, and the problem is by people traveling in Pajeros in air-con vehicles, and they do not even get into buses or know exactly what one goes through catching a bus.
How will you handle the fuel situation?
Well, I think it's quite certain. As far as Labour is concerned, we'd like to see cheaper fuel prices.
How will you do that?
Of course, it's controlled, and we accept by the Middle East conglomerates. But we cannot avoid one thing, and that is, if we wish to make a change or make a difference in the lives of everyday people, those who are boarding buses and taxis, and those who rely on public transportation, we would obviously like to see, at least from our point of view, a reduction in fuel price. And if we can maintain that for a longer period, obviously that would be good. While the world conditions and climate will dictate how prices fluctuate.
Mr. Singh, how will you reduce the fuel price?
Well, I think it's simple. The government of Fiji at this particular point in time takes millions of dollars from the fuel importers association, because all these companies obviously bring in the fuel and then they pay huge amounts, which comes down to millions of dollars. If we are going to implement our policy, certain, if we control and reduce fuel prices across the board for our consumers, then that would mean losing out on certain amounts of tax.
Yes.
But it is possible and it can be done.
How will you do that?
Well, why not? If we are
a lot of people sitting down would be thinking, okay, Labour Party is looking at reducing fuel. Okay, what are you looking at? By what percentage, and how will you do that?
Once again, let's just say tomorrow, if the fuel price is X amount of dollars, then if we are to say, great, from next month we will reduce all fuel prices across the board by 25 cents, then that is what we will implement at that particular point. If there is a huge conflict in the Gulf right now or tomorrow, obviously...
It's out of your control.
Yes, it is out of our control. But as I said, reducing fuel prices across the board in this country is not a difficult prospect. Although there is a lot of fear-mongering around it, you lose taxes, it's not possible. But if there is any sort of conflict and fuel prices jet up again, then that will be out of our control. But to reduce the fuel prices across the board, let's just say, for example, 20 cents on fuel, 25 cents on premium diesel, that will be our policy, and that will be our call in government.
So that policy you'll announce before elections or after?
It will obviously have to be once we are in government. Why? Because then we will be able to control the finances.
But you're saying to the people you will reduce the price of fuel.
Yes, we are.
But you cannot tell us
By how much?
How much?
That's right.
You will, though.
Yes, but
Okay.
that much we are correct with.
And you cannot tell how you will do that.
As I've said, once we are in government and we are able to look at the prices across the board and how much revenue is exactly earned per month being paid by the fuel companies, the importers of fuel, then we will be able to work out. But whatever percentage it will obviously be it'll be for the benefit of all, for the majority who are passengers, and even that will make a difference to the taxi association, which is thousands of jobs are dependent on the association, the bus industry, and for each and every citizen basically who goes by public transport.
You're listening to Straight Talk. We have Fiji Labour Party's Aman Ravindra Singh in the studio tonight. And if you have any questions, you can call us on 3314-766. The number again, 3314-766. Now, Mr. Singh, are you looking at other items as well, apart from fuel, where you'll see reduction? You've talked about basic food items, the list of 15. Are you looking at other items as well?
Well, it would definitely help. I think I'd mentioned a bit when it comes to children and babies. It definitely will make a huge difference because it's so unfair. The system is so unfair. The taxation system is so unfair. When we look at even a one-day-old child whose parents or loved ones are paying VAT on baby items.
Will you maintain the $30,000 income tax threshold where people do not pay income tax up to $30,000?
Well,
will you maintain that?
From just looking at the threshold at this point in time, obviously those earning 30,000 and below are able to take home more, and they are paying less
More
tax.
pay in their pockets.
Yes, and that obviously means the vast majority of people in this country are those earning 30,000 or before, those in paid employment. They make the bulk of the employment sector.
So you will maintain the 30,000 or below?
Yes, that is a good policy.
Okay. What will go up?
Well, once
Are
again,
you looking at some things that will go up? Definitely you can't put everything down.
well, of course. But as you can determine, our policies are people-focused. We are looking at making a difference in everyday people's lives. That's
People are
very
listening
important.
today. What
important.
is expected to go up?
Well, I don't want to speculate at this particular point, but as I've said, what we see from the Labour's point of view is financial mismanagement. That is something which needs to be addressed very severely. Another thing which we'd like to reintroduce is FNPF pensions going back to the status quo, as opposed to the pensions being cut. There were many who had suffered when FNPF pensions were cut from 15% to 9%. That
we will go to FNPF
That will
pensions
go up.
again. You have gone into another direction.
Yes, but that will go
what
up.
will go up?
FNPF
What will
pensions.
go up as far as taxes and duties are concerned?
Well, look again. You see, what we have is a lot of potential, and what we don't have, or what we cannot see, is after 12 years of government under this present leadership, local industries. Right, there's not much to show for it. Manufacturing, there's not much to show for it. Small businesses, while there are $1,000 handouts and big elaborate public show days, but there's nothing to show for it. Once again, there is so much potential in this country, but we are not able to see any improvement or income being derived from these industries or from these areas. Now, if you're asking me to simply say what will go up, no, I'm not going to speculate about what will go up. But what we will be able to do is to provide a fair, equitable distribution of the revenues, as opposed to showing a 4.5 or 4.8 billion budget as per the current budget, and yet showing a shortfall of over $414 million.
So you will review
Why
and
spend?
assess when you get in?
Yes, but
You
why?
review and
Yes,
assess.
yes, absolutely. And why spend, or why try to show that you are spending X amount when you don't have that? If you go into a restaurant over the next 7 days and eat $200 worth of food and only pay $100 a day, you'll be in $700 debt. And obviously the restaurant owner will not like that. And that is the problem we have here. Any fool can take a loan from World Bank and build a road, obviously for that road to fall to pieces in 6 months. But what about making a difference to everyday people's lives? And that is what Labour wants to do.
Do we need the roads?
Well, of course we need the roads, but more than that, we need a better health system. If I say to you, Vijay, would you prefer a better health system which will make sure that any ailment you have is cured, as opposed to having a beautiful road but having a hospital which cannot even provide you basic medicine? Any person will reply, we would prefer a better hospital. Yes, we want the roads, but at the same time, why do we have a hospital which is inadequate?
For Fiji Labour Party,
and
will
roads
you continue to build roads and also look after the health system, or you will plan to sort of reduce the roads budget and go towards the health sector?
Well, two parts to your question. One, yes, Labour Party will continue to build roads. In fact, we will build better roads. Roads which will last 10, 15, 20 years, as opposed to roads which only last 6 months and start to sink, like you'd see in front of Nandi Airport. And secondly, we would like to see a reduction in allocations towards infrastructure development, and we would like to see an increase in medical services. That will be able to provide better specialist medicines. That will also provide better doctors, better facilities for patients, beds, especially where it's not available, like in the labour ward, all these things, and the list goes on.
I've got a question here from a gentleman from Ba.
How can the Fiji Labour Party lead this country, because the candidates are very less, eh?
Mr. Singh, you have 25 candidates. Of course, we'll have a 51-member parliament. How can you run government with 25 candidates? And that's if you're all 25 of you get in.
Well, firstly, we were going to nominate 28 candidates, but 3 were disqualified, so we had 25. Secondly, obviously, there would be an opportunity to... You only need 26 parliamentarians to form government. And if there is a need, we will surely have the assistance of one of the smaller parties.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, just going to the issues regarding constitution, on where the Fiji Labour Party stands as far as the current constitution is concerned. Do you accept the constitution giving the common name Fijian to all citizens of the country?
Look, historically, the indigenous people of Fiji were always the Tauke people. Now, when the colonial masters came in and when Fiji was given its name, spelled F-E-E-J-E-E, the indigenous people were then referred to as Fijians. And after the indenture system and people making Fiji their homes, the unfortunate policy of only keeping or naming the indigenous people Fijians continued. Now, as far as I'm concerned, I am a Fijian. I was born in the nation of Fiji. My nationality is Fijian. Now, nobody has given me that. It is my birthright and every other citizen's birthright. So, for anyone to say that I was given the name Fijian, that is absolutely incorrect. Now, ethnically, we have people from different ethnic groups. Now, I identify myself ethnically as a Hindustani, whereby I have a separate culture, separate tradition, and that is what makes me. But I am a proud citizen of Fiji. I'm a patriot. I'm a nationalist, and I am a Fijian.
Now, the common name of Fijian, you are happy with that? You accept that in the constitution?
Well, with or without the constitution, as I said, no one can tell me to accept or not accept. That is my birthright. And every other person in this country who carries a blue passport is a Fijian. If you're a citizen of New Zealand, you'll be called a New Zealander, American.
Okay, Mr. Singh,
American,
before the constitution,
yes,
you had to fill in your status as Indian. Eh?
No, I again, every time
legally, you had to put India.
No, I did not. Every time I traveled in and out of the country, much to the dismay of the customs officers, I would always take Fijian, because there was a huge confusion within the governments in the past about nationality. An Indian is a national of India. An European is obviously from Europe. Obviously, you confuse him or her because they're not sure which country. A part European, again, is only a terminology used in Fiji. and a Fijian is a national of Fiji. So that is the confusion. And if we open the dictionary and look at nationality, that's what it will
Yeah,
explain.
but legally in the past, we could not do that. That's why I'm asking the question.
Yes.
That in the past, we had Fijian, Indian, and others.
That was what was
Even
on the
our
law
voting
books.
system was like that.
That was on what was on the law books. You're
right.
you're absolutely right there.
So you do not accept that. You accept that everyone is a citizen of Fiji and Fijian.
As I've said, there are obviously certain quarters who are not happy with with everyone being called a Fijian, but I simply make this plea to all of you out there to understand the difference. Now, nothing will ever take away the name of the Tauke people, and the Tauke people will always have the name Tauke. Now, as I've said, the name Fijian is not a word which was for the Tauke people. It's not even in the Tauke language, but it was a word which the colonial masters had given to the indigenous people of Fiji, and that had carried on over the years and into successive constitutions. So we need to separate nationality from our ethnic identity.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Aman Ravindra Singh on Straight Talk tonight on VTD-FM with us. We have Arvin from Suva asking a question. Good evening.
What has the Labour Party in store for all the civil servants who are facing this trauma, like having short-term contract?
There you go, the short-term contracts that person is asking what you have in store for civil servants.
Thank you very much, Arvind. Again, it is very sad under the guise of civil service reform, KUM has able to implement a very draconian and unfair system of contract whereby you have been forced to sign, and under duress many have signed, and you can be terminated at a second because you have also accepted a condition as part of the contract which says you can be terminated without reason. Simply put, the Labour Party policy is that we will rip each and every civil service contract. We will again reintroduce lifelong tenure within the civil service. We will make sure that there are processes to appeal and that there is fairness within the civil service. Now, those civil servants obviously who are not performing will be dealt with in the right manner, whereby you will be given warnings and then, if necessarily, terminated, but with fairness. You will have a tribunal which will look at all matters with fairness. The current contract, which is draconian and one-sided, and it says that you can be terminated at any time without reason, is wrong and not acceptable, and that actually puts the entire civil service under threat, and people are not happy within the civil service. So we'd like to restore morale. We'd like to make sure that civil servants are happy and they're able to perform in their jobs, and that they will have job security. Secondly, there are many civil servants who are acting on their posts, like principals and vice principals, who were removed from their respective posts and made to act. Again, these needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency, and people need job certainty. And those short-term contracts, which are 3 months, and people are again living with uncertainty, we'd like to make sure that is addressed, and if it is not fair, then it needs to be ripped up and a proper contract to be given to civil servants.
When you say proper contract, it will be permanent contracts?
One of the first things we'd like to do is make sure that clause is removed. That's why I'm saying that Labour will rip up the current contracts and introduce a fair contract which does not say that you can be removed just because someone did not like you or did not like your wife, or there was some gossip behind your back and you were just simply removed.
Put that aside. Will it be a permanent contract?
Well, yes, we will bring back permanency into the civil service.
That's what the guy is asking. Thank you very much. On to the next question. Balwan Singh from Nalawa in Ra.
Why Fiji Labour Party never gained power in last election? Also, Aman Ravindra Singh is preaching that his leader, former leader, is the former Prime Minister and former Minister of Finance. So what's the trouble? People have no confidence in Labour Party.
Your comments?
Thank you, Balwant. Look, that is your opinion, and you are most entitled to your opinion. Once again, Labour did not perform well in the last election, and we are looking to perform better.
Now, on FNPF pensions, you said you will restore pensions. Just asking the question, Mr. Singh, Fiji Labour Party planning to do that. There were reports out, independent reports saying if it was based on the previous pension rate, FNPF would have gone under by about 2050. Now, are you planning to restore the pensions for those pensioners who are already on pension? and the new pensions for the others who turn 55 later, or is it for everyone?
Despite that report, one of the things that we used to have was that FNPF, prior to this government coming, was a $3 billion very healthy institution. Now, one of the things we noticed after the takeover and the governance from 2006 onwards, after the military coup, was that there was borrowing from many quarters from FNPF. We had funds being taken out and being plowed into hotels, planes being bought, and these are millions and millions of dollars we're talking about. 220 plus million to buy new aeroplanes for Air Pacific.
They've paid it back.
And millions of dollars being spent in Intercontinental, millions of dollars being spent in MOMI. Now, FNPF's role is to make sure, first and foremost, that is an institution whereby pensions are being paid, there are pensions, and that there is sufficient money to look after its citizenry. Now, how would one feel when you wake up one morning, you're about to reach retirement age, whether it's 55 or before, and you're told that your pension that you have worked your life towards is going to be reduced from 15% to 9%. There was no consultation done in 2009, and this was just a move made overnight, and thousands of pensioners suffered. Now, obviously, it's now 2018, and so we are proposing a simple policy, which would be to re-implement 15% pensions for those who will be qualifying for pensions upon their retirement. And another thing we will be doing is bringing up retirement age from 55 to 60. That will give people 5 more years to work, and that will also provide much more in their pension scheme, provided compared to what we have now. Now, for example, someone who is paying off a home loan and is not able to do so by the time they reach 55, obviously will be in trouble, because once you reach 55, currently the policy is that you must go into retirement.
Only government.
In government, obviously. I was only referring to government. Thank you for that. So, at this particular point, Labour proposes, one, to increase retirement age to 55, from 55 to 60. And secondly, to increase the current pension rate from current interest rate from 9% to 15%. That we feel will be able to provide a better pension scheme.
You're talking about the pension rate.
That will provide a better pension
from
payment.
9 to 15%.
Yes. Where it used to be in the past.
Yes.
That will provide a better.
But there were some
retirement.
people who own 25%.
Look, we are just referring.
What happens to those people?
We are referring to those who had lost out from 15 to 9%.
I'm also asking,
yes.
Some people on higher pension rates going back about 25%. Will they get 25% back?
No,
will you just
we are looking
give
at a
back
blanket
15%?
A blanket 15%.
15%. Will you do full assessment before you do that?
Yes, of course, full assessments are needed. One of the things we do not agree with is how there are no workers' representatives on the current FNPF board. Previously, you had workers,
set up with
workers, employers, and the government. So that will also be something we will reintroduce.
You are saying 15% now, or you are saying that you will review and assess before you make a decision? You do not really know.
Yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. Well, one of the first things we will do is review and assess the current state of FNPF.
You will
and
aim to make it 15%.
Yes, and that is our policy, is that we will reintroduce 15%. But yes, the first thing we will need to do is reassess and review the current state of the coffers.
Annual reports look very good. Have you seen the annual reports?
I have not looked at the annual reports lately, but as I've mentioned, that is the Labour's
policy. Good to look at the annual reports before you make any further comments, maybe. Anna from Lautoka is asking another question. Good evening, Anna.
I just have a question for Mr. Singh. As a first-time voter, what would Fiji Labour Party do that is better than the current government?
We will make sure that the Fiji Police Force stops to torture our people, especially my condolences goes out to Josea Lalau Vaki and his family. Unfortunately, this young man was killed due to police brutality. We will make sure that the police are not in a position to ever torture or brutalize our citizens again.
What will you do to ensure that does not happen, Mr. Singh? Because there will be some officers who will get involved in those kind of things, and I believe investigations are underway. How can you change the mindset of those officers who may be thinking that they can do that?
There's a culture of violence, and this emanates from 1987, where might is more right than having common sense. We need to re-educate, we need to reskill, retrain our police officers, our military officers, and our prison wardens. Torture is across the board. The government of Fiji has sponsored torture, and that is why torture is being used and people are being brutalized. Now, with the Labour government, we will not at all sponsor torture. We will make sure that torture stops, brutality stops, and violence stops against our people.
What type of retraining are you planning?
Well, we currently see that certain groups conduct human rights training, and I'm not sure how it is conducted, but it surely has not sunk in. What we need to do is to have a robust qualification, entrance qualifications for police officers, military officers, and prison officers. We just simply cannot hand over our law enforcement role to people who are not able to follow orders, or people who do not have respect for humanity and for humankind. So when it comes to training, it has to be done across the board with new recruits, with current people serving there. And we also need a police oversight committee, whereby an independent committee is able to investigate the prison conditions. This is not happening. The Human Rights Commission is a total failure. The Human Rights Commission has not done anything in specifically to address torture and brutality against our citizens. We will address this. We will make sure that we are able to follow the rule of law, and that we are able to practice human rights in reality, as opposed to just paying lip service.
Now, going to the health sector, you said that you definitely will put more money into the health sector. What are some of the things that you will be doing? Specifics,
For example, since March 2016 to March 2018, 313 babies have died around Fiji under the age of 1. When you look at the statistics, about 30 babies had died because of some super bug which was found in the hospital. That is appalling. How could a newborn baby succumb to death just because they caught a virus? Then you look at about 30 babies who died of asphyxiation, that is by the umbilical cord, because they were poor delivery. About 35 babies had fed on the feces while they were in their mother's stomach. Again, they died of this. Now the list goes on. You had asked for specifics. First of all, we need to make sure that we have proper qualified doctors and nurses who are able to deliver children safely into this world. Secondly,
you think we don't have them at the moment?
Well, it's not the doctors and nurses' fault currently. When you have doctors and nurses working 2 shifts in one day, 16-hour shifts, 15-hour shifts, and working around the clock, not having proper medicine, basic medicine to give to people who come in for treatment.
So will
no
you
clean
increase
bed
the
sheets.
workforce?
Look, I think it's again a 2 or 3 pronged approach. One of that is to make sure that there are adequate financing. If you look at the current budgets, about 260 million goes towards medical, 500 plus million goes towards roads. Seriously, the 260 odd million which goes towards medical, the vast majority of that 260 plus million budget goes towards salaries. Now, we cannot have doctors and nurses continuing to receive good salaries, but the medical Ministry of Health is not able to provide medicine, is not able to provide clean bed sheets and clean pillows and beds in labor wards where mothers are being forced to lie down right on the floor on thin mattresses without blankets or without proper sanitation. That is just not acceptable. We need to not paint our hospitals like Lotaka Hospital right now has been painted on the outside, but when you go in the inside, apart from one ward, every other ward looks the same, and it's still filthy.
So what will you do?
We will make sure that all Fijians receive not only a decent healthcare system, but our objective and our aim is to make sure that we receive a first-class health system.
Mr. Singh, how will you do it?
Again, we will make
how
sure
much
that...
will you said 260 billion is not enough. What would be
Well,
your
for starters, why don't we just swap
budget?
it with the infrastructure budget? Why don't we put 500 million towards health, and why don't we put 250 million
But
towards roads?
we have some roads and some bridges that need attention.
That's right, because of many years of neglect, especially in the last 12 years. But we will be able to.
Many years of neglect. Now, in relation to, you talked about like maternity wards not having enough beds and things like that. So definitely you need a big extension with equipment and things like that. Do you have a plan set out for different divisions? Like CWM Hospital is getting a major extension at the moment. That's underway at the moment. It started. But do you have plans, and which areas are you looking at for maybe having more.
Yes, we
things.
do have plans. One of the first things the Labour government will do is that we will stop the privatization of the Lautoka Hospital and Bar Hospital. Simply, why? Because privatization will simply mean that there will be a 3-tier hospital system in Fiji. Be under no false illusions. If you go to Lautoka Hospital and it is privatized, if you cannot afford, then you will simply be sitting on the sidewalks. You will not be able to get the right treatment. Now, what Labour proposes is no privatization of public hospitals, but bringing up public hospitals to a first-class standard. That it can be done. That is our vision, and our people do not deserve any less. Our people deserve the best medical system. And one of the things we'd also like to implement and see is that instead of our people going to Australia, New Zealand, and India, we're able to have the best treatment here. The operations can be conducted in Fiji, and at the same time, we will also look into medical tourism.
Talking about public hospitals?
Public hospitals.
Because the
Yes.
private hospitals are
They're
now
on their
doing
own.
some of the heart operations are being
Yes.
done here now.
Yes.
So you'll be doing free operations in public hospitals.
Yes.
Have you done the numbers, and where all will it be
It won't be around the
centralized in
country.
some
No.
areas? So
What we-
how are you planning to do
For
that?
example, we will be, let's just say, Lautoka Hospital, which is a very large hospital, has 5 floors. One of the things we'd like to do is not centralize all treatment everywhere, because that can't be done. But what we'd like to do is to make sure that if we are able to put a cardiac ward in Lautoka Hospital, that can also be done in Suva Hospital. If there's going to be a cancer treatment ward, that will have to be done in possibly Lautoka Hospital. Children's wards again in Lautoka, which covers the western, and in Suva, which covers central, and up north Lambasa Hospital, which covers a huge area with over 100,000 population, or more than that, covering the northern division. But what we would also like to see is that proper medicine and facilities are available. We cannot have people going for relief and assistance to hospitals only to be turned down. Another a citizen who spoke to me last month said to me, my grandfather's leg was amputated, and on the very day it was amputated, the doctors were forcing myself to take my grandfather home. And I was appalled, because I could not understand how a person who had gone through such a traumatic procedure was going to be looked after at home. And the doctor simply said, look, we do not have enough beds and we need more beds. Now, these sorts of stories have been ongoing, but these stories need to come to an end. We need to be able to facilitate better health treatment for our citizens and our patients, and at least have a first-class health system which will provide the best health system we can provide for our citizens.
So you're saying, Mr. Singh, you will give about $500 million to the health ministry, and to fix certain things and to expand certain services.
Well, that was an example, again, when I had used the 500 million, but that is very possible if you swap the infrastructure budget to the health sector, and you take the health sector budget and put it to the infrastructure
We have a
side.
question from Menuka from Lami. Good evening.
As a parent, now our kids are like having free bus fare, free education and everything, like free books and everything. What will Fiji Labour Party, will it continue, or they'll do some readjustment, like they'll look when anything else, or they have anything else decided in their mind for our children?
Thank you very much, Menuka, for your question. Look, we should not be fooled by the word free. I think we all get very high and happy when we hear free, but not everything is free. Currently, the only thing we do not have free is you're not paying school fees. Now, you're buying your child's shoes, you're buying uniform, you're paying for lunch every day. That's very costly. Now, as far as we are concerned in the Labour Party, the taking away of the fees, which you are saying is free education, is good. If it means you're paying less, that's fine. Now, we're not going to obviously ask you to pay
No school fees.
Yes, we're not going to ask you to quickly come back and pay school fees, but what we would like to see your child and every other child in this country receive is a quality education. We want to make sure that teachers are able to go back to teaching, as opposed to spending more time at this present time filling forms and writing reports. We would like to make sure that there are more children, less children in one class per teacher, as opposed to being clumped into a big class with one teacher. We'd like to make sure that teachers are able to produce better results, because they are in the art of teaching and not in the art of administration. So these are some of the things that the Labour Party will perform.
So you'll stay with the free school fees? No school fees?
As I had mentioned, we do not see anything wrong with it, but it's not correct to say free school, but because it's not free school, it's just no school
Free
fees.
school fees.
Yes, no fees.
Now, in relation to the question that has come in here about unemployment, what kind of job opportunities will you create? Jerry from Singatoka is asking that question.
Just a question. If Labour Party wins, what will they do about the high unemployment rate in Fiji?
Thank you very much, Jerry. Once again, the employment rate is at its highest at this point in time. As per the view of the Labour Party, we will create jobs. Look,
So you
there are
do not
many
agree with the
opportunities.
statistics?
We do not agree with the statistics. We do not agree with many of the statistics. Look, again, it's no point saying the statistics are showing growth for 9 years, because seriously, that means nothing to the person on the streets. That means nothing to the person who is unemployed. And from Labour Party's point of view, we will tap into industries and manufacturing, and also make sure that there's the huge amounts of land in Fiji is utilized. Now, if you look from 12 years and you look at today, there is not much to show. Now, every time the government talks about we are creating job opportunities, I seriously can't see it. Just because one new hotel has opened doesn't mean all of a sudden that unemployment rates are going to change. So it's all about talk, but there is no action. And from Labour Party's point of view, our policies are people focused, and we will also invest in a green economy. We'd like to see that Fiji become a powerhouse in the Pacific with our agriculture industry. I'll give you a perfect example. When you go to Australia or New Zealand, bananas come from Colombia. That is North America. Fiji does not have a sector, an industry which exports bananas. We do not have a sector or industry which exports fruits. We do not even make our own juices. If you go into the supermarkets, all juices come from all over the world except from Fiji. So these are things that we can tap into. It will not cost us millions. We cannot even export a container of cassava every week to Australia or New Zealand, which has a demand. If you go to London or if you go to Australia or New Zealand, cassava comes from India and Thailand. Coconut water is supplied to Australia and New Zealand from Thailand and Philippines. Why can't we be packaging our coconut water? So the opportunities are there. We have the IQ to actually provide and to produce more employment. It's not going to cost millions, but we will make sure that there is a difference in the lives of our ordinary people.
That is Aman Ravindra Singh, the candidates leader for Fiji Labour Party, taking the candidates to the elections on November 14th. We'll wrap it up here, but Mr. Singh, the last question, I think it is a very important question. It has come up again that with 51 seats in Parliament, you need 26 seats to form the government. You have 25 candidates. How can you deliver on your promises knowing that you won't have numbers to form government on your own?
If you need to form government, you need 26 seats, and that will be the simple majority, because Parliament has 51 seats. Once again, as I've stated, there are other smaller parties, and it will be quite a simple act.
Which are the smaller parties?
We do not have many policies that we differ in. I think the biggest objective of all opposition parties is to implement change, which the people are crying out for. And it's important that there is change come election night, and that we see a better government in place, and a government which cares for the people, and we are able to deliver that.
Mr. Singh, which are the smaller parties in this election?
Again, I'm not going to
you said smaller parties,
say
so
which party, but all I'm saying
sure
is
the voters
come
will
election
want to
night,
know who Labour will work with.
Well, one thing I can assure you is we will never work with Fiji First, because our policies are once and for all, our policies do not match, and we do not support what they are doing. We do not accept corruption. We do not accept brutality. We do not accept violations of human rights, violations of the Constitution.
Okay. Which parties will you work with?
Any party.
You'll work with Sadelpa?
Any party which on election night has the numbers and we are able to talk to them.
So any parties apart from Fiji First?
Yes.
Okay. And what would happen if they have policies that are differing from what you have offered, what you have told the people?
Again, I do not see difference in policies. I simply see one thing: whether you are in this for your self-interest or you are in this for national interest. Labour Party is in this for national interest. We want what's best for the people.
So what you have told the people tonight, if you are in that situation where you are going in, you will say that you will only go in if these policies and these things are delivered?
Looking back at history, Labour has been part of coalitions in the past, and we have not had issues with our coalition partners, because when it comes to coalitions, obviously there are proper talks, there are proper discussions, proper agreements, and differences are ironed out before everything is put on black and white and the dotted lines are signed. So not to be drawn into any further speculation about who will go and do what with. I think it's important to focus from Labour Party's point of view. We are solely focusing right now on the elections and putting forward our policies and meeting people on the campaign trail, not forgetting that the current government has had the opportunity to campaign for 4 years. We are just being given 23 days from the moment our candidate number comes out. So it's a very short time, and there's a lot of work to be done.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. That question was basically asked because you have 25 candidates. You definitely, if you're caught in a scenario, you would have to work with other people, and voters would want to know. That's why you want Straight Talk, to tell people that if this scenario comes to play, this is what we'll do. So thank you very much for clarifying that. I'm sure our listeners have got that message from the Fiji Labour Party. And as we go into more talkbacks, of course, Straight Talk will come back on Thursday night at 7 p.m. with Sodelpa leader Sitiveni Rambuka. We will also have some talkbacks where we'll have two party leaders coming in. So you may see Aman Ravindra Singh coming back for another talkback with other leaders as well. So stay with us for that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narayan. And I'll throw open this challenge to the Attorney General, Syed Kayum, for a good debate over Straight Talk.
Good night.
Thank you.
The 2018 general elections, the issues that matter, the people that matter. This is Straight Talk with Vijay Narayan.